Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Want to know why modern-day retirement planning is becoming a lost art? Well, maybe it's the same reason in basketball that the baseline jumper is as well.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
The game of basketball was invented in 1891 by Canadian-born Dr. James Naismith, who stumbled across the concept of throwing a round ball into a peach basket while apparently hustling games at the local YMCA in Springfield, Massachusetts. Fast forward nearly 150 years later to today, and I'm sure Dr. Naismith would be shocked at just how popular the game of basketball has become. And yes, according to this little man in a sweater vest, sadly, taken a turn for the worse in terms of the enjoyment of watching fewer and fewer coaches and players having little regard for utilizing and strategizing offense and defense that utilizes the full court, and instead, apparently, opting for the simple and boring strategy of launching multiple threes and or crashing the boards with wild layups in hopes of drawing a foul. Yep, that's right, folks. Gone are the days of the strategic full court press, the cunning and masterfully played pick and roll, the objective, of course, of picking down low and feeding the big man for points, and yes, even the coveted 10-foot jumper or even the skyhook, which evidence of years ago was apparently the way to go, but now seems to be a lost art. So what does a game which in the past was based on expertly using all of the court, yet today resorts to only using a small portion of it, have to do with your retirement? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, welcome, folks, to the Worry-Free Retirement. And yes, I'm that little man in the sweater vest, retirement planning specialist and full court planning specialist, Tony Walker. And before we show you how we at Tony Walker Financial are using our expertise in retirement planning to help our saver clients utilize the full court with their money, let me introduce two young teammates who regularly help tip off this show each week. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, just to prove my previous point that the game of basketball today has turned into a three-point contest, or worse yet, a track meet to see who can drive to the basket the fastest and the hardest without regard to anybody taking a charge anymore, what does that have to do with the game of the past? Well, let's go back to the 90s, not that long ago. A wonderful time, in my opinion, to watch NBA basketball, an era that had some of the best basketball players around. I want you to notice something. Look in the late 90s at the number of shots taken from a variety of different spots on the court. Some, of course, from three-point line, but some all around the basket and, of course, that patented short baseline jumper. Now, let's fast forward to today and take a look at the average, what we call shot dispersion rate of today's game and see how many of those 10-foot jumpers are being taken. Wow, none. No mid-range jumpers, no skyhooks, nothing but threes, layups, and of course, the slam dunk. No wonder today's game is, to me, less exciting to watch. So what does the concept of everybody and his brother launching three-point shots have to do with all of the advisors now jumping into the retirement planning game, have to do with you, your money, and here's the important thing, what you can expect in the way of these so-called game plans that all these advisors advertise they're doing? Well, when I return, two special guests will be with me in the studio to share with you how we at Tony Walker Financial utilize the full court in retirement planning to help our saver clients enjoy a worry-free retirement. So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. And before we talk to our special guest in the studio, I wanted to focus again on how much the game of basketball has changed over the years, from one of multiple strategies and different sets to beat the opponent, to now one of who can hit the most threes and get into the free throw line the most by driving hard to the bucket and picking up fouls. Let's take the great Michael Jordan and just how many threes he shot back in his career. The stats we uncovered say this of his entire career, that Michael Jordan shot 1,778 threes. Now, let's compare the number of threes he attempted versus one of the best three-point shooters ever. That's right, Steph Curry, who is still launching them with the Golden State Warriors. The question is, how many three-point attempts has Curry taken? Can I get a drum roll, please? That's right, as of the date of this recording, Steph Curry has taken 9,738 threes.
A what?
That's right, folks. The coaches have figured out that all you have to do is shoot and make more threes than the other guys to win the game. And all you have to do is practice shooting threes, of course, or driving like a madman to the basket in hopes of getting to the foul line, which is the whole point of today's show, to share a brief glimpse behind the curtain of how we at Tony Walker Financial take great pains to use our expertise to not just launch financial threes all day, but instead look at the whole financial court to take advantage of it for you. And with that said, I'm excited to have in the Worry-Free Production Studios our own Juanita Jackson and our own Craig Davis. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on board. And I wanted to go through, we've talked about this, but we have 4 case studies briefly we wanted to go through. And I guess what I want to do is, first of all, thank you and the rest of the staff for the amount of time and energy it takes behind the scenes to do what we call true-blown retirement planning, and how the service issues come up a lot of times that many people, when they come to us, have never seen service like what we offer. So let's take the first case, and I'll let you all weigh in. This was recently a 65-year-old couple, husband and wife, wonderful couple. He literally came to us, Juanita and Craig, and said this: I've got cancer, it's terminal. I feel like I really need to get things organized before something happens to me. They had no game plan. So if you would share a little bit about this couple.
So this couple was wanting to prepare and get everything in one place in order to be able to manage that easier. They knew they had upcoming hospitalizations, treatments, things going on in their life. And when they were able to move forward with that and ready to, we were quickly able to provide all the documents they need to get the accounts in order and in one place for them to easily see. So part of the issue was their transparency with their situation and the urgency to get things in place quickly.
And Craig, unfortunately, as of the day of this recording, the gentleman did pass away. She sent a wonderful email about how we worked with them, and where was your involvement in this and trying to get all those 401ks moved over before his passing?
That's still why he's able to be in the office with us. We made the rollover calls. That can be a little difficult. We have had experiences where people, maybe they are hospitalized and they can't pass security on those conference calls, so they can't do the rollovers, and then you're just sort of stuck waiting. So while he was able, we made the rollover calls. We got those transfers of checks, all that process going, and we're able to get that done really within a matter of minutes for them.
And I got to meet with her a couple of weeks ago following his death, and just to be able to say, we're just simply going to transfer everything over to you now. There's no decisions you have to make. The game plan stays intact was, I think, just so reassuring to her. She didn't have to make any decisions. Next case study, this is an 85-year-old couple. Didn't even know they had a trust, and also they basically admitted, we're just disorganized, we're missing documents. Jump in on this one, Juanita.
So they came to the office with a large binder of documents that they had. That was helpful, but a lot of them had been prepared years and years before, and they really had no recollection of even forming a trust. We're not aware that some of the assets were held within the trust. In order to move those, we were going to need a copy of the trust paperwork. After multiple phone calls to the attorney's office who prepared the document, they were unable to produce a signed copy of it. Eventually, the client did remember in a safety deposit box that they had a copy, and we were able to move forward. These were multiple types of accounts, non-qualified, after-tax, Roth, and pre-tax, that we were trying to move in, titled in different names. And we had to make a number of updates just to get them over. So it was a long process. We were ultimately very successful in moving all accounts.
You all did a wonderful job on that, and I know they appreciated it. Tied into that, we had a 60-year-old gentleman who came in. His father was worried about his wife, the father's wife, passing away because she was in poor health, but he ended up passing away. So, Craig, you were involved in this case just a little bit. In fact, we've got some footage of you all literally diving into all those files that they had. What could you say to people out there who really are scattered in our ability to help get things organized?
One of the things, and we talk about repetitions, right? The number of times this is what we do. And so the number of times that we go through documents, we look at accounts like this, we know the questions that need to be asked. And so sometimes there are refining kind of questions, organizing questions that we can help them think through that they've not thought through. So yeah, a box full of documents, we can manage those and then say, okay, this leads to a second question. Do you have another document? We have this other things to follow up with. So those are important.
And I know sometimes, Juanita, they get a little frustrated with us because we keep asking for all this, but it's imperative to have these documents in order so we can set up the accounts properly, correct?
It's imperative that we have the documents in order in the full documents so that we know what we're dealing with. Oftentimes in these cases, the account needs to be re-registered in the name of the beneficiary before we can move anything. And we've got to have those documents in place to provide the information we need for the transfers.
I want to go back to you, Craig, because you mentioned that about knowing what questions to ask, and you do all these rollover calls from 401k custodians. Sometimes you've even had them, I'd say, give you the incorrect answers, and you've had to call back. What can people experience sometimes if they're trying to do this on their own when they're calling these 401k custodians to roll them over to an IRA?
Well, sometimes the rep just doesn't know. I mean, these are complicated situations, and so the representative will go in, read the plan rules, but they just maybe misunderstand. And so we did have one recently where it was a multiple $1,000 taxable event that the representative was about to
This is several $100,000, right?
Several $100,000 on someone's taxes this year if you hit the button that says submit. And so we said, no, stop. And then we said, we can't move forward today. We ended the call. I asked the client, do you have a minute? That information is just not correct. I know for sure you can do it. We called back. The next rep said, yeah, of course you can do that. And we just got it taken care of.
Tony, I've also encountered finding that clients have just lost track entirely of accounts. And in one or two instances, we've had to reach out to unclaimed assets and find accounts there to bring over. So we think we'll remember, but if we're not organized and everything isn't under one roof, it's certainly hard to keep track of what's out there.
And speaking of under one roof, and again, you know me, folks, I don't have a problem with these trusts, but here's where a trust can create big-time problems. Our last case study is a 56-year-old that called out of the blue, had seen the TV show. His father is in a nursing home currently out of state. So the son helped sell the home, correct me if I'm wrong, here in Louisville, but it was in a trust. So the check was made out to the trust. So he runs down to a bank. He's got a power of attorney or limited power of attorney, and the bank won't accept the funds. How did we help that person and explain that situation and what happened there?
So in this case, not only was the son power of attorney separately, he was also named as a successor trustee in the trust paperwork. If you simply read the trust paperwork, you saw that it made provision for the father to name him as a successor, even if he was not deceased. And so we just provided the letter to name him as successor trustee as his father wanted for him to do. And we're able to open the account and proceed with depositing the check and getting that invested on their behalf.
Well, that's wonderful. We're about on time. I appreciate y'all so much, all the staff. But folks, if we can be of help at Tony Walker Financial on any issues you're having at retirement or near retirement, give us an opportunity to talk. Just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call us anytime at 877-499-9255. We'll be right back. Don't let the fear of running out of money in retirement keep you up at night. Turn your 401k into mailbox money for life by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-9255. Our Tony in the Trenches comes to us from Steve in Louisville, who recently wrote the following. Tony, I recently attended a dinner seminar, and the presenter mentioned something about the power of zero and how much they could save me in taxes on my 401k plan in retirement. What is the power of zero, and is this something in which I should invest in? Well, speaking of launching threes in a desperate attempt to garner more of retirees' money, this concept of a tax-free retirement income, which, folks, does not exist, by the way, is making a comeback, as we too in the past touted this book. Actually, we had a video of it still today called The Power of Zero, which, nothing wrong with this concept, but it's an attempt to share ways to turn your retirement into a tax-free income. But it doesn't really disclose what it's going to cost you to do so. So with that said, let me say this. There are a lot of people out there pushing tax planning advice. And as someone who has personally studied finance and tax planning for more than 40 years, here is the truth about paying taxes or possibly trying to avoid them. Unless you're going to give your money away either before you receive it or you're going to give it away to charity at your death, you cannot avoid taxes. In other words, at some point, you must either pay Uncle Sam now or pay Uncle Sam later. You got it? Good. Okay, let's move over to an example over to the whiteboard. This is kind of cool, and I want to talk to you about this concept. I call it the cost of having no game plan. You see, folks, many people come to me who have been with other advisors, and they've been with advisors for many years, and they will show up as they approach retirement, or maybe they've recently retired, and they come to me for a second opinion, and here's why. They have no game plan. And I want to share with you an example of someone who came in recently. We won't name the advisors or anything like that, but let me tell you what happened. So they said about 10 years ago, they purchased a $300,000 annuity from this advisor. It was a fixed indexed annuity. Again, nothing wrong with fixed indexed annuities, but folks, a fixed indexed annuity over the long term is not positioned to make a huge rate of return. It's not going to do that. A fixed indexed annuity is meant for protection of principal with hopefully some decent market gains from the indices that it's participating in. So after 10 years, it was worth approximately $340,000. All right. In addition to that, they had put about $150,000, I'll just call it in an AUM, that's assets under management, a managed account. And now, again, it's worth about $250,000. Not bad. The problem is, these people didn't understand that after the 10th year, they were contacted by the same advisor who switched that annuity into another 10-year annuity. Not a very smart move. And again, that $340,000 was apparently to get a bonus. All this sounds good, but in the meantime, the advisor made a ton of money on the commissions on the front end. They didn't know that they were also charging 1.5% fees here. When they moved them to the new annuity, again, the advisor probably made about $25,000 in commissions, and now they've got a brand new 10-year surrender charge that they've got to start over as they move into retirement. So you might say, well, Tony, I'm not really sure. It looks like it's growing. What's the problem here? The problem is, folks, with no game plan, number one, they've moved into another annuity at a time in life where this was probably not a smart idea. Secondly, they have no ideas how much an opportunity costs with all these fees, commissions, and everything else that are being taken out of the account, what it's really costing you. And finally, without a game plan, they still don't know which account to draw from. So they're locked into a brand new annuity. We couldn't help them with that because to get out of it would be huge surrender charges. Yeah, maybe we could handle the money and put it in a Schwab account or something, but the problem is, folks, now we're having to service an annuity for somebody else who made a commission on it, and they've really done nothing to deserve this. So here's what I would say. If you are thinking about working with any advisor, before you start just tossing money at them, please consider getting a second opinion from us first before investing money with them. And this is so easy to do. The best thing to do is to start off with what we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, where you and I will talk by phone just for about 10 minutes. And if we think we can help, we're going to set up a free appointment for you to get one of these free proprietary game plans only offered by Tony Walker Financial. So take advantage of this free phone call today by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or call us anytime at 877-499-9255. When we return, our final interview in this series with Mr. Bob Russell on the decision fatigue that Christians go through in life and in retirement. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi,
Want to know what most advisors hate talking about? The fees they're going to charge you to manage your money. Not so with Tony Walker Financial. In fact, we are so confident in our services that we now have a posted video on our website called How We Get Paid. So before blindly handing over your money to just any advisor who won't tell you how they get paid, check out our video at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or give us a call anytime at 877-499-9255. Our client spotlight today shines brightly on Mike and Dawn Bierman. First of all, Biermans, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I moved down here 2 years ago from outside Chicagoland area. Worked 37 years with Borg Warner Automotive.
I was a career RN. I worked 38 years as a nurse.
So basically, what prompted you to contact Tony Walker Financial and inevitably end up working with us?
Well, we were approaching 59 and a half, and we just really wanted to see where we stood and what our options were as far as our future.
And now that you're officially retired, actually you've picked up a part-time gig. Tell the audience what you're doing right now.
Yeah, we're doing school jobs, so we really enjoy it a lot. Only working
36 weeks a year.
here, yeah.
We're off at 2:30 every day. It's 16 weeks vacation. It's just a perfect setup for us.
And of course, since you haven't reached age 65, this new gig has really helped with the health insurance.
Absolutely.
And what have you enjoyed most about working with Tony Walker Financial?
From the minute we walked in the door, we felt comfortable. The options were laid out clear to us. It was explained thoroughly. We couldn't have asked for anything more.
Any thoughts, Mr. Bierman? And also a little bit about the game plan we provided you. Did that help in making your decision to formally retire and kind of, as you say, begin this new chapter?
Well, yes, definitely. Just how you had everything laid out and well organized. It was a game changer coming here.
Well, Biermans, thank you so much for working with Tony Walker Financial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement, and we're actually in our last tough decision moment with our special guest here in the Worry-Free Retirement Studios, Mr. Bob Russell. And Bob, I thought the last one was pretty heavy duty. I think I've saved the really heavy duty one for last. Are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right. And this, depending on when this show airs, we've possibly been in the holidays. Those are tough times for people. I've met with a spouse that had just lost her husband, and I was asking how things were going. She said, okay, but she said, I'm dreading the holidays. And I guess just in general, because things change so much. We know nothing. My dad always said nothing's going to stay the same, but I guess just this search for meaning and why am I here and what can I do if I lose loved ones? I mean, have you got a way to kind of wrap this up and just help people think through just this idea?
Well, I think the meaning of Christmas, the story of Christmas is one that shows us God's purpose for our life. That God created the world in perfection. Adam and Eve sinned and separated the world from God, but God did not leave us as orphans. He came down in the person of Jesus Christ, and he didn't just come and die on the cross. He came as a baby. He came as an infant. The Bible says he was tempted in all points like as we are, yet without sin. And so we celebrate the fact that Jesus Christ came in the flesh for the purpose of dying on the cross for our sins to forgive us, and then raising from the dead to show that through his power we can do it too. And that meaning of Christmas overrides the grief and the difficulties that sometimes people experience. And holidays are tough because there's an empty chair.
Yeah.
And it reminds you, hey, life doesn't stay the same. I wish I'd have known you're going to ask this question. I'd have looked up the reference about, because I can't give you the names, but in World War II, a woman's husband went off to war, and just 2 or 3 days before Christmas, she got a telegram that he had been killed, and she was staying with her parents, and she went up in her room and just cried her eyes out. And by the time she came down several hours later, the father had taken down all the Christmas decorations, taken down the Christmas tree. She said, "Daddy, what have you done?" Said, "Well, I think in grief like this is no time to be celebrating Christmas. It's just, oh no, bring that tree back out. Christmas was made for times such as this. That's how deep the Christmas story is. It's not all frivolity. It's that though we suffer, though we go through pain, there is a purpose in life. I was dealing with a man several months ago who had self-diagnosed that he had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And it may not be a more horrible way to die. And he knew what was facing him. And he told his family, if I do have ALS, I'm going to commit suicide so I don't put you through that and I don't go through that. I wanted to tell that guy, suffering has a purpose. Even though we hurt, even though we have pain, God has a purpose in that. And then several weeks later, I had the funeral of a man who had a similar disease, and his granddaughter gave a testimony at the funeral about how much she admired her granddad, because though he couldn't physically get out like he used to, he would dress himself every day, and he showed up in a wheelchair at all of her soccer games and her recitals, and he never complained. And she said, my grandpa is a hero to me because how tough he was in suffering. And we may wonder, does our life have meaning because we're not as capable as we once were, or we're going through suffering, we don't understand what it is. And all our responsibility is to be faithful to God every day. Let him take care of the purpose. C.S. Lewis once said, pain is God's megaphone. He shouts to us in our pain, but pain is also God's spotlight. People watch to see how you react when you're hurting, and you have an opportunity in your painful times or in your older years because people are watching to see how you react. I remember one time as a young man, I was playing basketball at church with a bunch of guys from church, and I sprained my ankle, something really bad, and I was writhing in pain, and the guys hovered over me to see if I was okay, see if their preacher was okay, and one of them said, go ahead and cuss, preacher, we know you're thinking it. And he was right too. But people are watching to see if your faith is real. And nothing reveals a genuine faith like being able to be faithful in tough times and say, I'm not sure what my purpose is in this, but God has a purpose and I'm going to be faithful to him.
That's wonderful stuff. Bob, we have covered all of our points. You're always so gracious to come on and be on the show. We appreciate it so much. I know people love hearing from you, and thank you for what you continue to do. I know you're still very active in speaking and counseling young ministers, so just thank you for what you continue to do in God's service.
Well, thank you. I kind of promised the Lord, as long as he gives me health, I'll keep on speaking and preaching and try to do the best I can. Thanks.
Well, God bless you. Folks, you've been watching and listening to the Worry-Free Retirement. I'm Tony Walker. Between now and next week, you remember, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.